What's up, y'all? This is Alex from the Rim Review. The Rim Review is a page that offers in-depth player analysis and gives nuance to the way you watch basketball. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at Juan Nunez, the 6'4 guard out of Spain. When looking at Juan Nunez's game, there are a couple of offensive strengths that jump off the page. The first of which is his passing, and with a 1.9 assist-to-turnover ratio, Nunez is able to get everyone on the court involved. He's able to make multiple skip passes, and some of his late dump-off passes are honestly unbelievable. Secondly, he's extremely comfortable in the pick and roll, where he does a really nice job using his instincts to probe and keep his defender on his hip. This allows him to have more time to make some of the really impressive reads that I mentioned earlier. Finally, he has really good instincts pushing the pace in transition, and even though he is not very quick, because of those instincts, he is still able to average 1.202 points per possession in transition. There are still some pretty big weaknesses to Juan Nunez's game. The first of which is his shooting, where he shot 27% overall in his career. However, in his recent season, he did improve to 31.9% from beyond the arc, but it still needs some work. Secondly, I would say he's like an inconsistent player when it comes to playing through contact. Sometimes he looks really solid, however there are other times where he's very clearly bothered. And finally, there's a very limited ability for him to create a shot for himself. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because of how good he is at creating shots for others, but it does mean that he's A, going to rely on a lot of ball screens to be able to become effective, and B, in those ball screens, not necessarily be looking to score. And I think you have to look to score to a certain extent in order to draw the defense in and become a reliable threat. Now, let's get into the film and watch Juan Nunez play. On this possession, Nunez is going to get the ball in transition and make a football-style pass across the court. While this read looks simple, Nunez's instincts to immediately look up the court after a play is beyond impressive. This style of playmaking leads an offense and allows him to be successful. Right here, he does a really great job reading the defensive coverage. The defense doesn't do the best job talking here, as the center assumes he's going to the rim, however their forward has already claimed the rim. So two guys claim rim, so Nunez makes the very simple pass, skipping it to the corner, leading to a wide open three. On this next possession, Nunez gets the ball in another transition situation. While he isn't the quickest, he cuts the court and it leads to an open three. When I say cutting the court, what I mean is you could draw an imaginary line down the court right here. Nunez passes that line and makes a one-handed pass to his open man. By passing that line, it forces the defender right here, number 56, to open up his hips, and a simple play occurs. Nunez on this possession is going to showcase more really high-level passing. He pushes in transition, jump stops, and has a really easy reverse pivot kick. On this next possession, Nunez is going to get the ball once again in transition. As Nunez pushes here, he starts off slow and changes pace. However, he loses his handle and isn't able to fully create for himself. Now let's look at Juan Nunez in the ball screen where he loves to be. Here's what he does really good here, and I think you saw it on film, but it's this probe dribble right here that makes him so talented. Because he does this, it's able to get this guard out of the play and he has a wide open floater. But hypothetically, if the guard stayed in the play, Nunez would have had more time to read maybe a potential cut from here, a hammer screen, or a variety of different plays, maybe hit the pocket, maybe throw a lob. But by doing the probe dribble, you can read a dozen different things and he makes the correct choice here. On this next possession, it's another similar probe play style from Nunez. This is how he likes to play. Here it's in a DHO, and he gets a wide open floater again in the probe. If, let's say, this defender were to have more committed to him rather than committing to the big, Nunez would have probably thrown up a lob. Nunez is an extremely talented passer, and it works out quite nicely. Right here, he's going to slow it up, call for a ball screen again, and then probe to a really egregious amount and have a step through. While this step through doesn't fall, I like the play. The reason why the step through didn't fall is the pickup point was higher than in previous possessions. In other possessions, the probe and the pickup was occurring here. However, as you can see, it's a couple steps further back, making it a more difficult shot. With more skill, he'll be much better here. Now let's watch Juan Nunez operate in a pistol action. A pistol is basically any combination as this oval, like right here, with 3 guys in the wing, where this guy sets it, and then this man comes on Nunez. So Nunez uses the first screen in the pistol, and then refuses the second, and gets downhill for an easy extended finish. Juan Nunez definitely prefers extended finishes, and we're going to see that here. He comes downhill and gets his arm out to score. What I love how he does here is the defense is going to have a soft hedge or a quick stunt. You see how the defender number 19 kind of jumps out like that and leans. So it's not drop coverage, but what Nunez does, a lot of guards take a retreat dribble here because they get worried. Nunez attacks it even more, and then 19 goes back, and so it becomes simple. It's no longer a threat, so Nunez isn't bothered by that pressure. On this possession, Nunez has the ball, calls for what would be called a wing ball screen, angled in this direction. He refuses it, and then makes an awesome skip pass read. Nunez honestly at times feels like he has eyes in the back of his head. Right here, he has a step-up ball screen, and it actually steps into Spain pick and roll, which is this action right here. Almost every other video I mentioned Spain pick and roll, but it's something that I think every basketball fan should know how to recognize. Right here, Nunez is patient, and let's walk through his progressions. So Nunez is going to call for a screen right here, and his job is to read a couple of players. Firstly, he's obviously reading his man, seeing if his man is committing or not. Now, what he's doing is he's going to read this guy right here, and he has to see, is this man going to come over and catch the roll man? Because if he doesn't catch the roll man, Nunez has a potential pass to the roll man if number 11 doesn't get back in time. This man connects to the roll man, so Nunez is going to look off for another half a second and then hit a beautiful skip pass to get an open 3-point shot. These are NBA reads, and it's really amazing to see. Right here, Nunez is going up against drop coverage. I mentioned this also in a lot of videos, but just for any new people, drop coverage is this right here, where the big is just playing below. He makes a really amazing pocket pass. It's almost like a wraparound. It's not necessarily a pocket, would more be through these guys, but it's a wraparound pass, and it's just beautiful to see. He's simply crafty. On this next possession, Nunez is calling for the ball and gets it at the top of the key. This screen occurs, and it's going up against this kind of junk zone, heavy gap principle. And Nunez makes just an obscene no-look pass. He's looking in the corner. Everybody thinks it's going there, and he says, nope, I'm just better. On this possession, his team is going to be running a delay series, which is when the big gets the ball back up at the top of the key. Nunez is going to come up. He doesn't get it initially, but he gets it the second time. Calls for a screen, and just makes a really awesome late pocket. By throwing this pass, a lot of guards would try to throw this pass maybe like right here. And it's a simple play, but the active hand of this man having his hand right here makes it a hard read. So it's tough to throw it over the top because this guy's in good positioning. So Nunez continues to dribble, forcing number 10 to commit, and then makes this jump dump off pass, which is awesome. On this next possession, Nunez once again showcases this passing that is just fun, honestly. There's no other way to describe it but fun. Nunez twists, and yeah, I don't even know how to describe that. That's going to be shown if he gets drafted. Right here, Nunez is going to call for yet another ball screen, and this time, it's just the simple things. This screen occurs, and then this man is going to be the shake guy who lifts up right here, and because this defender has to catch him, the shake is open, and Nunez makes simple plays. And guess what? Simple is pretty effective with Juan Nunez. On this play, Nunez gets the ball, calls for a ball screen, and twists it. And then this man is going to have a backdoor slash cut right here. And Nunez just makes a really great play. Like, if somebody's open, he will find you. On this possession, Juan Nunez isn't going to necessarily be at his typical state. Right here, as this screen occurs, Nunez is going downhill. What I don't like is the fact that Nunez is picking the ball up at this area right here, kind of at the brink. I would like to see Nunez either take more dribbles and attack this big, or maybe probe, force the big to make a decision. So let's say the big commits to Nunez, then Nunez has maybe a pocket pass here, or a lob here, or a lob to this cutter. Or if the big doesn't commit, it becomes easier. I think Nunez was a little rushed here because there's 8 seconds on the shot clock, and he takes a floater. I don't hate that floater, but I think he could have gotten something better. On this possession, Juan Nunez does telegraph his read. I don't want you guys to get the impression that he's always perfect, because no one is, but he is still very young. Right here, he tries to make this no-look pass, and honestly, I think the better read would have been if he had thrown a lob to the big rather than throwing this spray pass. I think he was expecting 13 to fully commit, but 13 didn't. And I actually like the cat and mouse from 13. His first step is here in this direction, and his second step is back out. And while it's pretty slow, it's actually good to see. On this possession, Nunez is going to predetermine a pass to the shake. So right here, the tag isn't fully there. Most of the reason behind this is the fact that the screen made no contact. So when people talk about screens, just this is more of a general basketball thing, but when people talk about, oh, he's a good screen setter, it means that this doesn't happen. No contact occurs here, so this big doesn't have to come over and help, because this defender, it's like the screen never happened. So when he rolls, this guy no longer has to catch the roll, so he's able to stay on the shake. So the shake isn't open, Nunez assumes it is, and it's a turnover. On this clip, Nunez is going to try to push and have an extended finish. The ball screen occurs here, but he just loses it. On this possession, Juan Nunez is bringing up the ball and gets a switch. Now he's attacking the switch and tells everyone to clear the side, as you notice this with his hand movement right here. He's like, get away, I have a mismatch. He takes advantage of that mismatch by changing pace and getting an open three. It's a really nice off the dribble shot. However, as I mentioned earlier, Juan Nunez is not that great of a three-point shooter, and at 27%, shots like this are missed from him at a relatively high rate. Right here, they're going to run Spain pick and roll yet again, and it doesn't work. Nunez has the ball and calls for it. As you can see here, the Spain is here, and I will continue to say it because that is one of my number one passions, is everyone should know what Spain pick and roll is. And Juan Nunez takes it and just can't let it fall. On this possession, I do think Juan Nunez tries to do too much, and I'll explain what I mean here. Right now, he has a switch and he has a mismatch. I think when he has him cross here, this could be a shot if he was more confident, but he's not, which is okay. He then, I think, should hesitate, get downhill, and then force some sort of help to come over. Maybe this guy. I think this guy's too high. He's out of position to help. Maybe he can make a swipe, but I'd be surprised. But I think you could maybe force some sort of help and hit him as a drift, or him. Or this man could maybe swipe, and then you have a lob. There's so many things that could happen, or you could just create for yourself. But I think Nunez should get downhill if he doesn't want this shot. But this shot, making it a step back when you're already not a great shooter, leads to results such as that. These are just things that he could learn that could allow him to improve his game. They're not necessarily indictments as Juan Nunez as a player, but things that he will work on. Right here, I don't love Nunez's shot selection. What I mean by that is Nunez doesn't play off of 2 feet, and we see it on this possession. He's able to get downhill, and I would prefer a nice jump stop. A jump stop could lead to this man continuing to flying and Nunez having an open shot. This man flying, this man committing, and Nunez having a kick to the corner. Or a jump stop could give him more power to jump into this guy. Or, and once again, I'm saying this many ors because this is why you play off of 2 feet, a reverse pivot and a kick out here. Or maybe you wait and see if this man comes up a bit and maybe you have a lob. There's a dozen different reads you can make here, but by not playing off of 2 feet, Nunez forces up a really heinous shot. On this possession, Nunez is going to have the ball, once again, versus a switch, and call for yet another ball screen. Nunez then decides to settle, and when you have a mismatch, I'd like to see you get downhill more. Now, let's watch Juan Nunez in isolation. Right here, he has a switch, and is going to completely dribble back, but pulls a 3. He believes in his shot a lot more than his 27 3-point percentage would make you think. Right here, he changes pace multiple times. However, his man is still in front of him. He changes pace a final time and gets a nice extended finish. Let's watch him on this possession in the half court. Nunez is moving well off the ball, locates to the corner, swing, an extra pass, and a bucket. On this possession, I love Juan Nunez's movement, and I'm going to point out what I mean here. Nunez starts off, and the ball's in the post. I love this face cut right here. And I like this because it gives an option, and it really takes 15 out of the play because 15 isn't in front of him. But when Nunez doesn't get it, he immediately works his way out, and I love this movement here from number 30 because it takes out the help, and it's without a pin down, but it forces the defense to talk, and Nunez attacks the closeout. Just really fun basketball. This is the type of basketball I enjoy watching. Right here, Nunez is going to kick. He's hanging out on the wing. The ball is thrown into the post, and once again, good relocation, simple things. If the ball's in the post, move over to get more open. Nunez gets it, attacks the closeout, and has a really tough bucket to finish it off. On this possession, Juan Nunez is going to try for a stampede drive. You're going to see that as Juan Nunez is going to start calling for it, run forward, but he picks it up too early. I think Juan Nunez was a bit rushed. There's a full second on the shot clock when he tries this finish. He probably has another step and a half, and I don't love that shot. On this final offensive possession, Juan Nunez is going to highlight one more thing I want to talk about with him. He makes a lot of really good moves here and is trying to get open. Here, he attacks a closeout, and this man is flying by. I like the way that this defender is flying by because it's a sideways closeout making this pass hard. But when Nunez dribbles in, Nunez does something that I like his no-look passes. I love them. But in this read, just make the simple play. Instead, Nunez tries to do too much. And the reason why I think Nunez should just make the simple play here is, from a points per possession standpoint, a catch and shoot corner 3 to begin with is very high, and a layup is obviously much higher because it's a layup, but this layup is not a guarantee. And so I think Nunez sometimes just needs to learn how to make simple plays, and I love his no-look passes. I love some of the wraparound highlight plays, but it does come with consequences such as this play. Now that we've discussed Juan Nunez's offensive game, let's explore his defense. When looking at his defensive strengths, I think a lot of you are probably that have looked at his numbers going to come in with the idea that he's some shutdown level defender, and that is far from the case, and he's definitely a negative defensively. However, he does have active hands, and it's this 91 steals number that I think can be somewhat misleading and make a lot of people, and I bet you on draft night some ESPN reporter is going to say he's a good defender. I think he's smart, and I think he's competing, and I think he has gotten lucky to a certain extent, and I do think it's some skill with his wraparound steals and stuff like that, but he is not and far from a good defender. Secondly, he tries hard. And I think that it is very important, as so much of defense is effort. He just doesn't really have many of the natural tools to allow himself to become a good defender. But he tries hard and is smart, so he's a lot less of a negative than he probably should be. As I mentioned earlier, there are a plethora of defensive weaknesses to Juan Nunez's game. The first of which is the fact that he is extremely slow. He was close to Zach Edey on numerous combine numbers, and Juan Nunez is a guard. That is honestly just not good enough to cut it in the NBA. Secondly, he has really poor physicality, and it's not from him being lazy. It's oftentimes just because he doesn't have much muscle on him and hasn't really had access to NBA strength coaches. So I think in the NBA it can help him a lot, but in Europe, a lot of the times it's not necessarily focusing on developing athleticism and strength and stuff like that, and it's much more the skill work and the reads and how to think about the game. And Juan Nunez, to be honest, is a very much European guard, and I think that that's good in a lot of ways, and it's also bad in a lot of ways. And finally, he really struggles to navigate screens. There were a couple of clips that got me really excited where he was able to successfully bully a ball screen. However, with his lack of athleticism and physicality overall, it's just not something he's going to be able to do at a high level. Now, let's watch some clips and explore Juan Nunez's driving line defense. Here, Nunez is guarding the ball, and he just looks a little tentative. And you see it right here. He's trying, he's competing, but it's not a charge because he's not in position to draw a charge. Maybe it was a light extension, but Nunez was just bodied. Right here, he's trying, he's getting there, he beat his man initially, but he opens up, and somehow he still fouls him, even though he's trying not to. Right here, it's going to be just another instance of Nunez not being good in a driving line situation. He's very hoppy, and you see that right here. It's in transition. Nunez, as his idea, should be forcing his man towards the wall. Your help is right here with this guy. So you shouldn't really be forcing him this way, but get into your man. Be a lot more aggressive. But then the immediate opening up and just, he's not there. It's hard to see. While that being said, there have been a couple possessions that are bright spots, such as this one. Right here, he's navigating, he's fighting, and I love to see it, and it leads to a steal. Those are the type of clips that ESPN is probably going to show you to mislead you and make you think he's a really good defender, but these are also the clips that people who are actually like watching see and think maybe they can develop to be okay. Right here, he was just bodied up in the post. While being bodied up in the post is one thing, I hate this because this is just poor technique. He is begging his man in this frame right here to spin baseline. And I understand that he thinks he has backside help right here with this guy, but this guy is A, not tall enough, and not in position enough to be doing what he's doing. And the baseline spin leads to an easy layup. Right here, Juan Nunez is going to be involved in ball screens. Nunez is here. He does a really great job navigating, and then has a behind the back steal, which is exciting. But once again, these are the exceptions, not the rule with Nunez defensively, and more often than not, it leads to plays such as this, where it's just too easy. On this play, Nunez is going to get clipped by a ball screen. As you see, the screen happens here, and this is barely made contact. And the screen has Nunez acting like he was hit very aggressively, which he wasn't. Right here, Nunez is picking up full court. He does little things like that. Picking up full court is great. But then he immediately gives up a refuse. And he just seems out of place, very reactionary defensively. I want you to look at his eyes right here. He's completely looking at the screen rather than looking at the man in the ball. That showcases a little bit of a lack of trust in this teammate who needs to be talking to him. And that's what's going to happen. If you're not looking at the ball, that is going to beat you every time. Here, he picks up full court. He looks like he's being aggressive, but then he just can't navigate through a screen. He cheats it. He fights to get back, but then just isn't quick enough. In my personal opinion, Juan Nunez is currently undervalued because of his lack of athleticism. I think that a lot of mocks that I've seen have him in the late 50s, and in my opinion, he is an early second round talent. And here's why. His ability to read a defense and run an offense is off the charts, and his passing is one of the best in this draft class. When you are able to pass like that, it is honestly just an obscene next level rate. It puts you in a position where you always have a job as a backup point guard, or even like an 11th or 12th guy in an NBA team, because you're so smart and can process the game at such a high level. I also think that Juan Nunez, because of his off-the-dribble shooting and some of the confidence he has, I believe that he has the skill set to develop into becoming a better shooter than his 27 percentage point would show. I don't think he's ever going to be a good shooter, but there's no reason in my eyes why he can't shoot 32 or 33% with some years working with NBA shooting coaches. In that world, I think we have a really solid player. And defensively, I think because he tries, once again, getting him with NBA level conditioning, it wasn't like he was playing in the EuroLeague. He was playing in a second-tier league in Europe, and that makes it more difficult for him to be successful. A lot of the tournaments I saw him in were Eurobasket, which was below EuroLeague, and once again, he doesn't have those level of resources that some people would have. He still has a lot of resources, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have what a Luka Doncic would have had at a Real Madrid, and he's definitely not Luka Doncic, but I just was mentioning that to give you some kind of perspective. So when I talk about what Juan Nunez could be, I think his ceiling could be a starting level NBA guard, and you don't get that much in the second round. And the reasoning for me is A, his passing, playmaking, and his competitiveness. I think the 91 steals are very telling because even with his athleticism being one of the worst in the draft, if not the worst, he still makes things happen. And that's exciting to see defensively. And I think that he could be a starting level point guard on a playoff team potentially if he hits his 90th percentile outcome. I think what's more likely is that he's an eighth man that runs a second unit, because I think teams will still be concerned, because I don't think he'll ever be a good defender and I don't think he'll ever be a good shooter. I think he could be okay at both but not good, which leads to a backup point guard. I do think as if his floor, if he doesn't improve at all in his defense and shooting, he is the type of guy that could get washed out in a year or two, but I don't know, there's just something about it for me that I don't see him not developing those two skills because of how quickly he's been rising recently. Because of that, I would pick him probably in the 30s and around a range of around 35th. Once again, thanks for watching another episode of The Rim Review.